Obviously, the talk around MPs having second jobs still a very, a big topical discussion, and there is currently a review going on into that, and there's been some movement in that quite recently, where it is now looking like that one of the things they are going to certainly recommend going forward is that MPs will not be able to monetize what they do in a media review. Now, if you are an MP and you have a YouTube channel, for example, you can't monetize it because technically that will count as like a donation, and it gets all very, very messy, essentially. That is why, even though there are MPs with YouTube channels, they aren't allowed to monetize them. They're not allowed to do that. Now, certain cases, of course, we've seen Farage monetize his Twitter feed, for example. We've seen that, but that feed isn't exactly coming from individual donations. That's coming from, shall we say, Twitter, the company. So there's, different things and things you can get away with, but we've seen in the past that you can't, for like say an MP can't have a monetized YouTube channel. Basically, you just can't. There's just too much stuff around it, where that money comes from, even if you know it's coming from YouTube. Then the stuff about, well, what are the advertisers, what are they paying? Because again, you can pay directly to monetize, let's say, someone's particular YouTube channel. So if you want to monetize an MP's YouTube channel, then you can absolutely do that. Hence why there is the non hence why MPs don't do it. It's just so complicated that they don't want to wade into that mess. But I think you are now, of course, seeing the government, and especially this government, take that very seriously. And this was something that was started initially on the Conservatives, but as you can see, everyone's seen in a moment, they weren't taking it, 100% seriously. But now we've actually got a government that is taking it seriously, because I think this would be, I think, a very good win for them to see doing this. I think it's something that definitely should be done. Especially when MPs have had pay rises. Obviously, it doesn't look that good when they're doing second jobs, but it's something we should take care of. It's something that should be done. I think, as well as like corruption, favoritism, all that stuff needs to be you know cut off permanently. So we'll see how this review goes, but well, of course, when it finally does, and of course, what the policy then is then based off this review, which is going to be the critical thing. But we'll have a look at this initial uh, review that's sort of come out about it. It's not the full review, but I think we'll get that later, I think, this year. Not 100% off the top of my head, but yeah, I think it will be later-ish this year. But yes. Anyway, going into this, because this is something that does need to be certainly tackled and addressed. So before we do go into this, like I say, please click the links below, the YouTube thank you button. There's the Patreon page, and there's, of course, the Buy Me a Coffee link. I don't know why I'm going a bit Yorkshire. I don't know where that accent's coming from, but there you go. So as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, links down below. Help us support the channel. Like I say, click the like, click the share button. And of course, let's crack on into this. So MPs should not do media work that monetizes their role. So the government has now backed proposals to stop MPs taking second jobs that they have been offered because of their role in Parliament. This is now an expressed concern that some paid media roles may allow them to, quote, monetize their privileged positions. And this, I think, is the key thing here. You notice Nigel Farage here. I don't think just because you're becoming an MP, oh, come on, do this show regularly, raises huge questions about all that stuff. It set out, of course, a very detailed thinking about how the rules could be very much tightened on MPs of the outside interest now in evidence now to the Commons House of Commons Standards Committee. The statement said that it supported MPs asking now to sign up now certain principles, suggesting that by Parliamentary Standards Commissioner Daniel Greensburg. In particular, it favours a draft of principle saying that members are expected not to accept offers of paid outside interest that are made, or that reasonable observer might think are being made, primarily because of their membership now of the House. So again, you've got to have this type in wording fluff, unfortunately, because that's just how we're going to put this stuff, because it could get a little bit legal in some cases. So the government has also said it had concerns about some instances in which MPs were paid, of course, by the media. In its submission, it said, "We are very concerned with specific cases in which members get paid to hold contracts of employment with media organizations, which give rise then to conflicts of interest and attention to both, in the sense that the House is then responsible for the laws of governing our media, and of course, which such members could then be monetizing their efforts for private gain. Such practice can then harm the reputation of the House, further eroding public confidence in our institutions." So I would agree with that statement absolutely, completely. They should not be able to gain like a monetized contract of employment with a media entity. That is should be completely off the table. And I'm glad, again, finally catching up to something about this that's been talked about for a while now. Analysis by The Guardian recently found that 6 MPs have spent an average on 1 day working a week on second jobs since the start of the 2024 Parliament, with Reform MPs Nigel Farage and Lee Anderson taking on the most lucrative jobs as GB News presenters, as well as other work. And again, surprise, surprise, it is the Reform guys taking on all this very lucrative second job stuff. Government officials have found backing now for Greensburg's suggestions for principles comes after Lucy Powell, the leader of the House of Commons, asked the Standards Committee to look at MPs' outside interests and gave evidence suggesting that she would support such a system. Labour's position on outside interests has now significantly changed since Keir Starmer said back in 2021 he wanted to ban all second jobs for MPs with very limited exemptions. Of course, in its manifesto, Labour said that it wanted to, quote, take forward an urgent work on the restrictions that needed now to be put in place to prevent MPs from taking up roles that stop them serving their constituents and the country, including closing loopholes on lobbying. So again, I agree on that. Like I say, just because you say you want to ban all second jobs for MPs, not that 100% simple to walk in and just do so. But they are taking a lot tougher stance than certainly, shall we say, the one on Boris Johnson was. At one point, Boris Johnson's Conservative government even considered limits on outside interest, but this was then later dropped. In its submission, the government did not say of its supporting sets limits of types of jobs and hours, or even creating a list of banned professions. It said that whilst, of course, these approaches may be easily understood and enforced, they could create very much unfairness in the system, and any list could never cover all eventualities. As such, government says and does not believe that it is now currently the right approach to deal with the nuance now of this matter. The Committee on Standards Public Life, the advisory body on ethics, told the committee that they, of course, backed the idea, of course, reasonable limits with indicative limits on earnings and, of course, time, such as not taking on work that was, of course, equivalent more than, of course, 1 day a week, which, of course, fine. If an MP wants to take on a second job, don't like the idea. But if there are going to be things like, reasonable limits, that it's like, well, you can only do like, the equivalent of like 1 day a week, a couple of hours. They want to sit on like, I don't know, a charity board, something they care about, then sure, absolutely. I think an MP should be allowed to sit on a charity board. That can help bring a lot of attention, a lot of help to that charity if they can sort of, swing that and do that. I think that is good. I think an MP should be allowed to sit on something like that. But like I say, it's like, what are and aren't MPs allowed to do? It's a lot more, I think, nuanced conversation than I think a lot of people really take it to. And it's good that they are taking a good, serious look at all this. In other evidence, of course, the string now of Conservative MPs made arguments, of course, in favour of allowing outside interests. The Shadow Minister, Richard Fuller, made the case that it was, quote, flawed to suggest that being a constituency MP was a full-time job. Yes, being a constituency MP is a full-time job. What are you doing, Richard Fuller, that you are not? But then again, of course, he's not in government anymore. So maybe now that he's, an opposition MP where he doesn't have all that time, maybe then he can go around, oh yeah, of course it's not a full-time job. He wrote, around currently 100 MPs currently simultaneously serve as ministers. taking on full-time roles while maintaining their constituency responsibilities. Furthermore, much constituency work is effectively handled by staff. Again, just because you have staff does not mean you shouldn't also be taking care of that in some way, shape, or form, or knowing what is going on in your office, knowing what communications, etc., are going on at the same time. Anyway, Kevin Holroyd, the Shadow Minister for Housing and Community Secretary, who is also a shareholder in a lettings and estate agency firm, wrote to the committee saying it was unrealistic to expect business owners to divest themselves of their interests before even ever considering entering Parliament. Oh, just unrealistic to expect them to divest themselves, Then simple, don't become an MP. I think it's that. I think it should be that simple, honestly. But he continues. He says a prohibition on outside interest would have, of course, prove a very significant deterrent from other business people entering the world of politics. Well, guess what? If they do want to enter the world of politics, divest. Simple as that. Simple as that. However, some of those who provided evidence to the committee did suggest that there is the quote principle-based system backed by the government might not, of course, go far enough. Transparency International UK said that allowing MPs to take up second jobs outside the boundaries of simply maintaining their professional qualification leaves them open to corruption risks such as favoritism and quid pro quo arrangements. And as it stands, jobs such as consultancy roles or other non-executive director roles are, of course, still permitted. Professor David Hine, a tutor of politics at Oxford University, flagged the concerns that the principal system could create, of course, a scope now for significant ambiguity and misunderstanding, which could, of course, discredit any of the proposals now intended to tighten the restrictions. And, of course, that is where I agree with him on that. The problems will come up. Even though you might get them passing these things, which, again, tighten restrictions, it is then not seen as, oh, tightening restrictions. It then damages reputation because, oh, well, MPs can still go out and do this, this, and this. It's a difficult situation. It's not as simple as just going ban everything because, what if an MP wants to work with a charity, help support a charity? Technically, could that count as lobbying? There's all these questions raised when MPs go and do out these things. It's not, I think, as easy as people necessarily say it is. Just going banning second jobs again. I would like to see that. I'm not going to lie and say that I wouldn't like to see that, but there's a lot more, I think, nuanced conversation I think that should be taken place in this regard. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. So, as always, let me know what you think down below. But I think it's a step at least in the right direction, especially when it comes to blocking sort of media contracts. I think that would be very, very good to see sort of blocked from MPs taking. But of course, as always, like I say, let me know what you think down below. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.